one is really interesting because here I have some questions, which is BP5, which talks about analyze architectural design. And here the remark is analyze the architectural design to identify and analyze vulnerabilities, because this term vulnerability is something we hear often when it comes to cybersecurity. So maybe a question to the panel: what is a vulnerability?
Vulnerability, in my point of view, something once the design is ready, uh, the software is working, and then you later come to know that we have weak point here. Somebody can uh, exploit this particular component
Hmm.
in our design. Then it would become vulnerability.
Hmm.
Uh, or let's say it's already exploit uh, while testing,
Hmm.
uh, and then again that is vulnerability that has to be fixed, I would say.
Hmm. Maybe a follow-up question, because this is something we have to really get it clear. So, if at all I find a problem
Mm.
which is related to the security, then do I call it as a vulnerability? If it is not related to security, then do I call it as a problem and handle as a part of the problem resolution?
In my opinion, yes. In normal process we call it as problem. You then handle it as a PRM, uh, and when it comes to the cyber security, we call it as vulnerability. So to answer your question, yes.
Hmm. Okay, so which means
So
uh, bugs or problems which are not security critical will be treated using whatever the processes which are defined in the ASPICE 3.1. But on the other hand, if at all it is a security critical part of the software or a system, then normally it is identified as a vulnerability and treated based on however vulnerability management is defined in the security standards. Falgun, you wanted to say something?
yeah, so as per ISO 21434, the definition of vulnerability is a weakness which can be exploited in the given attack path. So in this way, if your vulnerability is not coming in the attack path, or it not a weakness in the defined attack path, then it is not considered as vulnerability in the scope of cybersecurity 21434.
Um, can we have some examples, because it is bit hard to understand, because that's where also many of the cybersecurity engineers are getting confused. What is vulnerability? What is threat? What is an attack? What is a normal bug? What is a problem? And so on and so forth. So what can we think about some examples where I say, okay, this is vulnerability because this is a weak point in the way of attack path or in the attack path.
So let's say um, you have designed a system where there is an interaction between your ECU and another ECU,
Hmm.
right? So there is a message exchange. For the sake of simplicity, let's put CAN.
Hmm.
So it's on a CAN protocol. The message gets transferred between one ECU to another ECU. A threat is anyone can attack this message, anyone can modify this message.
Hmm.
What could be the attack path here? The attack path would be that if the malicious intent person gets access to one of the ECUs or the channel itself, the physical channel where they can read out the CAN message, because CAN is a broadcast protocol. So you can still read out those CAN messages. So you can see that and they can put the message back into the network if this is a possibility. So this would be one of the attack paths.
Hmm.
Now, the weakness that your message is exposed, that there's content, the confidential content that one software is sending to another ECU,
Hmm.
if it gets exposed, that is your vulnerability, because that is a weakness which can be exploited in the attack path. So this is a given attack path. The weakness is that if this confidential information is exposed, then your vulnerability is that your whole system can be compromised because that confidential information is out of the system. Also, there can be some let's say some more malicious messages that can be ingested into the network and into the system. So this is where it becomes a vulnerability.
Okay, in that sense, every attack path should have a vulnerability, right? Otherwise, what is the point of calling it as an attack path?
So let's say uh, we analyze the network and then we come up that there will be attack path. Let's say can messages are going through from one issue to another issue, and then attacker can somehow physically access this CAN bus, and then he can try to inject uh, CAN messages after reading it maliciously,
Hmm.
and the intended message cannot be delivered because the traffic is already blocked by the attacker. So in this case, I think let's say we decide okay, in order to prevent the read message, we can implement the CMAC, or let's say encrypt the message. In that case, even though it is breached, but the attacker cannot read the message.
Hmm.
But still, there will be a vulnerability if the encryption key somehow exposed.
Hmm.
So we initially prevented it by encrypting the message, but uh, let's say later point of time, if we come to know somehow this encrypted key also would be exposed and the symmetric encryption is means used, then it would be again dangerous.
Exactly. So that said, when are you finding it out? Maybe you do a penetration testing or some
Yes.
kind of a security related testing where you identify this
Mm,
bug, or maybe you do the security analysis of your architecture or something like this, formal methods where you identify, okay, here there could be a weak point. Okay.
yeah.
Now, if I compare, I take this complete scenario into a non-safety critical project, then what are they called?
They called as a problem, or
Problem
let's
or
say
a
bug
review
in it.
finding,
Yeah.
something which will treat it as a problem resolution, right? So,
Mm,
from that sense, can we say that it is the same? But whenever I say vulnerability, I'm mostly talking about the security world. Can I say this?
yes.
Falgun?
Yeah, this is what aligns with the definition that is given in 21434 as well, right?
Okay. So, which means, and also something I have observed, that the term vulnerability itself doesn't come into picture when we do Tara. It comes
Yeah.
after we finish Tara,
Mm,
like we have a process. According to that, I derived some requirements, controls, architecture is designed. Then when I try my verification method, both on the left side and right side of the V model, and I identify the weaknesses. I mean, here they give a beautiful term as weakness. Otherwise, we normally call it as a bug or a problem or I don't know, error, defect, whatever it is. Then normally it is called as vulnerability. Then it has to be treated according to the vulnerability management. I mean, we just want to be sure that we don't miss out any of these high priority issues without fixing. So it will be treated separately, but more or less it will be similar like handling the problems only, right? Because when we developed our product, um, car security, we had this discussion, if you remember, because a lot of the time there is a bit of a confusion, and engineers tend to think that vulnerability management is completely different, or how do I do it? Because everybody after one, because now I see that people are a bit familiar with Tara, so that they understand now what is threat, and how do I do the attack path, attack vector, these terminology they understand, but nobody understands where does this vulnerability come from. If at all I'm addressing all the threats already in Tara, then where is this vulnerability? I mean, in which part it comes? So this is where we had a longer discussion, try to understand, and when we try to map it to a non-safety critical, product development, we understand that it is nothing but a problem or a bug, but a security critical one. So that's why it is, different terminologies used, and yeah, that's it's treated according to the vulnerability management.